The Cornwall Canal. Constructed in the early 1840s, the 11-mile canal was used to bypass the raging Long Sault Rapids, allowing ships to bring cargo to Montreal. It was responsible for many jobs in the area and was once a hub of activity. But after the construction of the seaway, the canal was no longer needed and was left to decay. The result is what we see today: declining water quality, crumbling stone, out-of-control vegetation, and stagnant water. Some remember the canal the way it was.
Well, back in '46 when I started as a seaman, ordinary seaman, and worked my way up the chain of command, and I ended up as first mate, and I had my captain's papers. By the time I was 28, I guess it was. Eventually, things changed drastically in '58 when part of the seaway was flooded, and then in '59 when all of the seaway was opened up, then our job became more or less redundant.
Increasing talks of opening the canal for recreational use has caused the city to take a closer look at the feasibility of taking on such a project. John St. Marseille has close personal ties to the canal and is concerned with the fate of this historical area.
Yes, I volunteered as a member of the Waterfront Development Committee. It's probably about 12 years ago now, I guess, and I was there for a couple of terms. Certainly this whole area, as I mentioned, I have a strong history, and I think a strong feeling towards the nostalgia associated with the canal, and opportunities for considering the redevelopment and use of this canal for recreational purposes. I'm a triathlete, and I actually do some swim training in this canal, and I've seen over the years some changes in the water quality and the presence of seaweeds, or macrophytes as we call them as well. So,
contrary to the concern of local residents, water quality tests conducted on the canal have shown surprising results.
You know, water quality in the canal is actually surprisingly good. We did some testing, now that's 7 years ago, in the canal looking for bacteria, and E. coli bacteria, to see how safe it would be for swimming. And we found that the bacteria levels were actually below the standard, the provincial water quality objective that we need to obtain. So those samples that we received were said it was suitable for swimming. I think the areas where you have the best flow is obviously the water is going to be of better quality than elsewhere where there's no flow.
If crucial steps are not taken in the near future, the canal will pass the point of restorability, and the city will be forced to fill it in, losing an important piece of local history.
Probably the critical point is ensuring that the water is always flowing, and that there is that they don't stop the flow in the canal, that they always allow it. Because in fact, it's not only that for water quality for recreation, but for habitat and for other issues and uses. You want to have a steady flow through the canal.
With an increasing desire to reopen the canal, several factors must be taken into consideration. Due to the huge undertaking of reopening the canal, the technical aspects as well as the economic challenges must be addressed.
Water quality is a big issue that would have to be considered, and how you would reuse it in the wintertime, for example. I know there's been some discussion about maybe lowering the water level, but there's some key technical things that need to be considered. If you look, for example, at the limestone rock walls here, if the water level was lowered 5 or 10 feet perhaps, then you have to think about how the frost is going to affect the integrity of those bits of infrastructure. And also from slope stability perspectives, right now the water that's here is also providing stabilization of the slopes, and if you lower it down, then that's something that needs to be considered.
An interesting discussion and that's come up is whether we could lower the levels in the wintertime and promote sort of like using it as a ice rink, an ice skating canal. And I think as long as you could do that, as long as you maintain the flow and didn't bring the levels down too low. But that's currently done in the Ottawa Canal, and then with some success, and they have a long history. We just need to go to them to ask them what they do and make sure that we follow the same sort of practices that seem to have success in Ottawa.
In the 2007 update to the original Cornwall Waterfront Plan conducted by the Waterfront Development Committee, it is outlined both the constraints and the potentials for waterfront improvements.
And it really just looked at the, I guess what I would describe as the marine engineering aspects of this. Is it practical, given knowing where the canal is and knowing that to make a canal system work, to be able to transit vessels through, you would have to get vessels from the current river level up to the level of water above the power net. Significantly expensive. I mean, it declared a number of options, and in the $2003 we were talking about a range from kind of high 40-some million to 50-some million to do that. So, and that was really just dealing with the engineering, the cost to either reopen or rebuild those locks and deal with those issues. It really didn't deal with any environmental issues, any environmental assessment issues, or those kinds of things. So it really gave an order of magnitude of the cost to do that, but wasn't detailed enough to give every aspect and every detail of it. One of the reasons that there's interest in this is not only would it assist the kind of local transit of vessels that it's now challenging to get through the Cell and Eisenhower locks, but it looks at some of the success that's happened in the Lachine Canal in Montreal. Some of the things that are trying to be done in the sections that exist between here and Montreal, because the Lachine Canal is really part of the same system in a way that this canal is. You know, Lachine and Montreal is a much larger urban area, but the city looks with interest about how that has had a positive impact on the redevelopment of some of the old buildings that are around the canals, introduction of new buildings, creating public spaces and public activities. So I think, you know, beyond the basic issue of let's see how we can get some boating traffic in there, I think it's very much driven by the success of some other areas where they've looked at has this changed the landscape of a community, added new economic development and those things. So I think the answer is yes, the city's looked at those. Again, we're not a major metropolitan area like Montreal, so the scale and impact of those things may be less, but it certainly looks optimistically those things if it could be achieved.
So why should we look into reopening the canal?
When you think about the beneficial uses you have for recreation as a site for entertainment, we talked about the Riverfest festival that started this summer. I think that's a very positive tourism. Anything that allows people to enjoy the natural environment, I think is positive from an environmental point of view.
It's got a strong heritage connection, a strong history connection, and a great future resource opportunity to utilize.
I think it would very much change the feel and the development opportunities around that old canal, particularly for sites like the former Domtar site, right, which is immediately adjacent to it. I think one of the things the city wants to do in its overall planning is make sure we don't just orphan those sites, that we don't just kind of leave them alone and go and do development elsewhere. That, you know, in a world that should be concerned with sustainability, we need to make sure we reuse those sites. And I think opening the canal changes the entire perspective and entire dimension of that site. So I think it really would add something to things like the Domtar site.
If we continue to neglect the canal, not only would we lose a piece of our history, but potential tourist dollars, recreational outlets, and possible fish habitats. Now that Cornwall has taken steps towards becoming a greener community, reopening the canal for use would only further enhance the image of our city as environmentally concerned.